The music pausing seems like a good time to get going. So, welcome everyone. My name is Jess Schwab. I use she, her pronouns. Just a couple of logistical things before we get started with our webinar today. For folks who are hoping to be able to view our ASL interpreter, Anne, please go ahead and pin her to your screen using the three dots in the top right corner. And thank you so much to Anne for being here today. I'm really excited to be presenting the second in our series of webinars from Arts Alliance about the Cook County Arts Nonprofit Relief Grant Program. My name again is Jess Schwab. I'm excited to present this webinar along with my colleagues Megan Lewis and Jonna Schultz, who are going to introduce themselves in just a couple minutes. We're going to have some time for questions at the end, but really want to encourage you all to use the Q&A feature of Zoom webinars to enter your questions throughout. And just know that we'll also have some moments to pause for questions at the end as well. This program, the Cook County Arts Nonprofit Relief Grant Program, is currently underway. We have about 2 weeks till the application is due, February 29th. And this program is accepting applications from eligible nonprofits located in and providing programming in suburban Cook County. So today's webinar is really about helping you understand eligibility, who is eligible for this funding, what kind of documentation you need, and the timing and some of the logistics about grant awards. And once again, we're going to pause at the end to answer any questions you might have. But before we get into the presentation, we do want to just briefly go over Arts Alliance's role in this program. So let's go to the next slide. Awesome. So as many of you all know, Arts Alliance Illinois is a statewide nonprofit organization. Our mission is to build the creative sector's power through advocacy, policy change, and connection to resources in order to improve the quality of life in communities statewide. We have members who are artists, arts educators, advocates, nonprofit arts and culture organizations, and for-profit creative arts businesses. So really a wide range. And just want to introduce you a little bit to the team that's focused on connecting creatives specifically with opportunities like this with public funding. So that's Casey Smith, our Director of Programs and Special Projects, Megan Lewis, Jonna Schultz, and myself, Public Funding Navigators. And we also have some of our external partners here with us today, Chris Johnson with Lawyers for the Creative Arts and Jillian Gore with BDO, which is a nonprofit and grant maker advisory services organization. So just wanted to shout out some of our partners as well, who may end up joining us for a couple of minutes of the panel if we have some questions at the end. And really, this program is about helping as many folks in the creative sector as possible apply successfully for public grants. So the Arts Alliance has a help desk where you can submit questions about specific public funding opportunities like this Cook County grant or general questions about resources to help your creative business or nonprofit grow. And we're really excited that we're going to be able to expand this work over 2024. We're shortly going to be launching a series of informational webinars and workshops to help strengthen the arts and culture sector. So just look out for that and more announcements about details for that series. But right now, of course, the reason you all are here, we're focusing really on Cook County arts. So let's get started with that. I'm going to pass it off now to Megan, who's going to share an overview of this grant program.
Thanks, Jess. So the intent of this grant program is to provide up to $1.5 million in unrestricted relief grants to nonprofit arts and culture organizations that are located in and serving suburban Cook County. As we all know, the arts and culture sector was hit really hard by the COVID-19 pandemic. And there are many organizations that are still facing challenges being able to just go forward and operate. So this grant program is designed to provide some needed relief to those groups, primarily in suburban Cook, to help them thrive in our post-pandemic economy that we're all facing. The Nonprofit Relief Grant Program has 3 organizations that are involved. The first is Cook County. Their Bureau of Economic Development is piloting this grant program as part of the American Rescue Plan funding. Next is Allies for Community Business, or A4CB. They are the third party that's managing the grant applications. And as an organization, A4CB supports small businesses and entrepreneurs throughout Chicagoland to grow and to thrive. And then, of course, Arts Alliance. We are a partner to Cook County, and we're providing specific support to the creative sector through our help desk and through weekly meetings that we're having with the county. So for this program, the grant amounts are either $5,000 or $10,000. And the amount that you're awarded depends on your total expenses that you had in fiscal year 2019. So if your total expenses were at least $20,000 and no more than $100,000, then you may qualify for the $5,000 grant amount. And if your total expenses were more than $100,000, then you may qualify for a $10,000 grant. Now, if your organization was started between January 1, 2019 and March 11, 2020, A4CB will look at your total expenses on the first 990 that you filed. Regarding the use of these funds, this is an unrestricted grant, which means that the use is not limited to one program or to one project, but you have to use the funds in a way that advances your organization's mission. And these are grant funds, which means that they don't have to be repaid. And for this program, there are no reporting requirements. Now to talk about eligibility, I'm going to pass it over to Jana, who's going to review all of that criteria.
Thanks, Megan. So when it comes to eligibility, Cook County has 5 criteria that must be met. First, your organization has to have an active status with the Secretary of State, Illinois Secretary of State's website. And we've included a link to that at the end of this slide deck, so you can check it. Next, you have to have been in operation before March 12th of 2020 and have maintained operation throughout the time of your application. Third, your primary address must be in suburban Cook County. And if your address is in Chicago, remember, unfortunately, you're not eligible for this program. Fourth, your operation budget in FY 2019 must have been at least $20,000. And finally, your primary mission must be to provide arts and culture activities or services for the public in suburban Cook County. Remember, if you received PPP, SBOG, or B2B grants, you are still eligible for this program. So for just a moment, we'll touch on the Cook County Arts Nonprofit Relief Grant Opportunity. It is focused specifically on suburban communities, as many artists and organizations in these communities have not been eligible for the major funding opportunities that have been available through the City of Chicago. So in order to be eligible, remember your organization must provide arts and programming specifically to communities in the suburban Cook County area. And finally, to be eligible, nonprofit organizations must have a primary mission to create, produce, present, provide, or support arts and culture activities or services for the public in suburban Cook County. And the organizations may be of any of these disciplines: creative placemaking, cultural history and history, dance, design, fashion design, film, folk and traditional arts and crafts, humanities, literary arts, multiple disciplinary arts, music, media arts, performance arts, theater, or visual arts. And now I'm going to hand it back to Megan, who will go over the required documentations and tips for a smooth application process.
Thanks, Jana. So for the application itself, there's only a few pieces of information that's required for everyone to submit. First, you need to provide your federal employer identification number, or your EIN. Next, you need to provide a copy of both the front and the back of a government-issued photo ID of the officer or trustee that is listed on your 990 or on your AG 990 IL. Third is your organization's tax return for fiscal year 2019. Now, as I mentioned before, if you started your organization between January 1, 2019 and March 11, 2020, you can use your first 990 filing. And if you file the 990N or the e-postcard, you'll need to provide your AG 990 annual report. And the final item that you need is a bank statement from a current account. And this needs to be for the account where the funds would be deposited if you're awarded a grant. And this is so that the A4CB can get your routing and account numbers. Then there's some optional information you may provide, but you're not required to, which includes a work sample. And you can provide that if you think it's not clear from your other information that you're an organization with arts and culture programming. Now, getting started with the application is really easy. You just go to the Cook County Program website, which is www.cookcountyarts.org. And the link to the application is in the upper right corner of the page that you can see on this slide. Once you click on that, then you'll see this page, and the list of the required documents is on the left-hand side, and the application is on the right. And if you require the application in Spanish, you can get the Spanish language version by clicking the link at the bottom of the instructions on the left-hand side. So, some tips for making the application process go as smoothly as possible. First, before you start, make sure you have all of your documents and information readily available, because the platform for this application cannot save your information, unfortunately. Once you start the application process, you may time out if you navigate away from the page for too long. Some computers have been doing that, and we've had folks asking us how to do this. So if it does happen to you, what we recommend is that you open a new browser window and fill out the application again. Also, make sure you have the contact information ready for both the person filling out the application and the backup person. And this is someone who should be reached if there's any questions and if the main person is not available. And we strongly encourage you to select the box next to "Send me a copy of my responses" at the bottom of the application. This will prompt you to enter an email address and ensure that you have a copy of your application. So for this grant, all applicants who meet eligibility requirements and apply within the application window will be considered for it. And the Arts Alliance Help Desk has already received some questions about this grant, so I'm going to hand it off to Jess, who's going to walk us through what we've been hearing from folks.
Great. Thank you, Megan. So we're going to go over some common questions we've been hearing, and I do see already some folks have been using the Q&A, which is great. Some of these I think are going to actually cover some questions, so I'll try to make note of that when I see that. But again, please keep putting your questions in the chat, and we'll get to answering them a little more openly at the end. But here are just some of the things that we're seeing coming up a lot from applicants so far in the help desk. So first up is this piece about fiscal year 2019 total expenses. Megan, can you take this one?
Sure. Yeah, so this depends on what type of 990 that you're going to be filing. So if you file the 990 regular tax return, which is on the next slide, you'll find that your total expenses are on line 18 of that document. If your organization files the 990 EZ, you're going to find that on line 17 of that form. And then nonprofits that file the 990N e-postcard, your total expenses are going to be found on line O of the AG 990 annual report. And for those organizations, you're going to be uploading this document in place of the 990 in the grant application. And please remember that you have to have total expenses that are at least $20,000 to be able to qualify for this grant.
Great. Thank you, Megan. Another question we're seeing a lot comes up because a lot of organizations paused programming for a period of time in 2020 and some in 2021 due to the pandemic. So, Jonna, I'll pass this one to you. How does it work if an organization had to pause for a little bit?
Sure. You're right, Jess. A lot of organizations did have to pause, and that does not disqualify them for this grant as long as they maintain their 501c3 status and if they're currently in operation.
Great. So another eligibility question we've received is about primary business address and who your organization serves. So I also see this is coming up a bunch in the Q&A. There are organizations that are in suburban Cook County that provide programming outside of that area. So are those organizations, Jonna, still eligible?
That's a great question too, and I'm glad it's in the Q&A. So in order to be eligible, your work needs to benefit the public in suburban Cook County. So while your programming can be accessible to communities outside of suburban Cook County, your primary audience for your public programming should be the residents of suburban Cook County.
Thanks, Jonna. Another common question when pulling together all the documents for this application is about the requirement for a government issued ID as a part of this. So Megan, can you just go over what could fall into this category of what's considered government issued ID?
Sure. So this grant program accepts what you would consider to be the common forms of government ID, like a driver's license or a passport, a state ID, or a permanent resident card. But what's also included in this are some other ones that we may not be as familiar with: the Real ID, the Chicago City Key ID, consular ID, a military ID, green card, certificate of naturalization, certificate of US citizenship, and a Native American tribal photo ID. And just remember that whatever form of ID you use, that you need to upload a picture of both the front and the back of the ID that you're using. And you can use an ID that's been expired. That will still be accepted by the program.
Thanks, Megan. You mentioned earlier as well in the hot tip section that the grant applications cannot be saved. So what happens if someone on this webinar is applying and they made a mistake, but they've already submitted the application? Can it be fixed?
Yes, that is the short answer, that it can be fixed. Any mistake that you have, what we recommend is that you look at a copy of the application that you submitted and you make a note of what you need to fix. And then you will need to go back into the application portal and open up a new application form and then work through the process of applying again to put in that accurate information. And to give everyone some assurance that the grant administrator, A4CB, will be reviewing only the most recent application for your organization. So that first one that you did that had the errors in it, it will be considered void and won't be considered as part of the program. And remember to tick that box next to send me a copy of my responses at the bottom of the application. It's just before the blue submit button that you'll see. So then A4CB will email you a copy that you can review to ensure that your mistake is corrected, and then you can save that for your records.
Great. Thank you, Megan. I see some questions that sort of we touched on, but some that are a little more specific as well in the Q&A. So just a reminder to keep putting questions in that section, and we will get to some of those at the end. Also, just wanted to say out loud that I know this is a lot of information, and someone asked if you'll be able to get a copy of the slide deck after. All of our webinars are recorded and posted to our YouTube channel and social media. So you do not have to memorize all of this detail by any means. We'll be sharing out the link to all of this after the webinar ends as well. So before we get to questions, let's talk a little bit about the application review and approval process for this grant. Megan, I'll pass it back to you.
Thanks, Jess. So the way this is going to work is that Allies for Community Business will be accepting the applications up until the window closes on February 29th. And then at that point, they're going to review all of the applications to ensure applicants meet the eligibility requirements. And just be assured there's no judgment of a qualitative nature about any of the artistic merit of the work that you're doing. So after that window closes, all the applications will be assigned a random lottery number, and then the applications will be reviewed in lottery order. So if the total pool of eligible applicants exceeds the available funding, organizations that are located in HUD qualified census tracts and with total expenses under $2 million will be reviewed first. If you are awarded, you'll be asked to electronically sign a W-9 tax form and securely log into your business bank account like you normally would through your bank's website. And once you've completed these two steps, then A4CB will initiate a funds transfer for the grant. And then you should expect to see the funds in your account in 1 to 2 business days after that. So if you need more help with your application, there is the Nonprofit Relief Grant FAQs on the Cook County's website. We've also provided this link to the Secretary of State's page where you can see the status of your organization to make sure that you're in good standing. And you can always reach out to us through the help desk. Tickets can be submitted 24/7, but you should expect responses from us during normal business hours. And as just mentioned, the applications are open now, but they will be closing on February 29th at 11:59 p.m. So I'll toss it over to Jess to see about the questions that we've been getting.
Great. So this is our Q&A time. We're going to do our best to, I'm going to do my best to group some questions that have some similarities together. And we'll also reshare the link to our help desk again that Megan and John have just been talking about. The purpose of the help desk is to help walk through some more specific cases and any other further questions after this webinar. So we'll do our best to answer now and really just encourage people to come see us at the help desk for a more in-depth conversation. So a couple of different eligibility questions. This is a question we got in our first webinar, a good amount about parent organizations. I do see a couple questions about that, including one person who's asking about their parent organization being a museum, a department within a parent organization that is not a separate 501c3, if they might be eligible. Jonna, I'll pass that to you.
Thanks, Jess. And I wanted to make sure I'm qualifying this with Megan. I'm like, I'm gonna read. Anyway, I don't believe those are. And Megan, I'd like you to confirm that for me. I apologize. I want to make sure because we have had that question come through. It's a great question.
Yeah, you have to be an independent 501c3 from what I recall, and you can't be affiliated with a university or with a religious organization. You have to be a standalone. And the Cook County FAQs have some more details on this as well.
Great, thanks to you both. I see that applies to another person's question who is talking about a performing arts center operated within a community college. So it sounds like because it's a part of a larger university or college system, it's not eligible for this grant.
And that's right.
I see a couple of questions about geographic eligibility. So let's try to take a couple of those. So one person is asking that the venue business address is in suburban Cook County, but the mailing address is in Chicago, how that might affect their eligibility.
I can go ahead and take that one. I think that we've run into that before. There have been some organizations that they kept a mailing address in Chicago for convenience purposes, but if their organization's location, actual location is in suburban Cook County and they are serving the population in suburban Cook County, they should be eligible. So that would be something where we would just confirm that with Allies for Community Business when the application goes in regarding the mailing address compared to the organization's address.
Great. And I see another person asking a similar question, serving mostly youth in suburban Cook County, but the business address is in the city. So that seems like it would be a similar answer.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to just chime in and build on Megan's answer there. Please reach out to us at the help desk because there's a possibility that we would be able to let you know what kind of documentation that Allies for Community Business would be looking for, and we can share that with you. You can upload it with your application.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll chime in on is if you're located in Chicago and this is where you are, but you're providing services in Cook County, we'd have to double check on the eligibility there because that's going into a little bit of a gray area. We're not sure. We would need to explore that a little bit more.
Great. One last question about sort of population served and location. I do see one person has asked about their organization, which is based in suburban Cook County, primarily serving suburban Cook folks, but also does serve a couple, part of their population served, sounds like 15% does serve some folks in Chicago. What about this kind of situation?
Yeah, there's no like hard line of percentage served, but the intent is that your primary audience is in suburban Cook County. So I would say if the majority of the programming is for folks who are residing in suburban Cook County, then I would appear that you would be eligible for that, for the program.
Great. And I know this has been said, but again, just want to encourage folks to bring these specific questions that we can talk about one-on-one to the help desk as well. That support.artsalliance.org link is in the chat, and we'll also be resharing that link as well when we share the link to this webinar recording. Let's move on to some questions we also got a lot during our first webinar, which have to do with IDs and name of officers on some of these tax forms. So I'm going to group a couple of these together. Due to turnover or folks unfortunately passing away, we're having some scenarios where it sounds like organizations have people on their 990 forms who are not able to submit a photo of their ID. So how should we respond to these folks?
I'm going to toss that over to Jonna because she's been handling a lot of those questions that we've been getting in the help desk.
There has been a lot of changes since 2019. Yeah, and so what we've been sharing with folks is just please go ahead and upload a board member or an officer of your organization that is current on your current 990, one that's listed there, the front and back of the ID, please. And if it's a great opportunity to just go ahead and a short statement saying if the name's not anywhere in the documents that you're uploading, you can upload a statement that shares the position that that person has at your organization now. And that just helps clarify that for Allies for Community, for our grant administrator. And Megan, do you have any other tips on that?
Nope. That sounds like a good way to work around that situation.
Great. Thanks, Jonna. One person has asked about a file after submitting an application. So woo to this person for already submitting their application, that one of the files failed to upload. So does this person need to apply over again, or is there a way to send that one document another way? I'll pass it to you all, Megan and Jonna, but again, just want to encourage this person to come chat with us individually at the help desk about that kind of specific situation too.
Yeah, and I'll take that one. So what you can do is absolutely reach out to us at the help desk, because we do have a way that we can help you with uploading documents to an already submitted application, so you don't have to go through that process again. So yeah, just submit a ticket to us and we can help out with that.
Great.
This might be a good moment to just remind folks, if something goes wrong while you're applying, don't worry. You can just go ahead and apply again, and Allies for the grant administrator will only review the most recent application that you put into the system. So good tip there as well.
Great. A couple more questions. I see one person has asked about organizational expenses. So they only had about $12,000 of total cost in 2019, but have much higher cash flow between 2019 and now, 2022 and 2021. So would they be eligible for support if they only had about $12,000 in 2019?
Well, I think the first question, would you make sure that we're talking about fiscal year 2019 and not just calendar year 2019? So it might be capturing a different expense range of time. This 20,000 minimum is a floor to be able to be eligible for the program. So if there's other documentation that they have to demonstrate that, but there's also a potential, depending on when they started, that they might be able to provide a more recent 990. But again, this would be a very good question to send to the help desk so we could explore this a lot better.
Awesome. I do see a couple more questions about eligibility coming in, but maybe before we get to those, I do see someone has asked, can you discuss the required demographic information on the application? Is it optional? And what if you don't track the data noted?
So anything on the application that has a red asterisk needs to be answered. So if it isn't required, then you don't need to, if you can't track it, if you don't track it, if you don't have that information, that's not a requirement. It's just very helpful for Cook County to be able to capture this information, to understand the different population groups that they're serving with this grant program and in general. So that's helps them with things overall. But it's understandable that you may not track your demographic data as finely as maybe some of the questions are being asked.
Great. Thank you, Megan. Last couple questions here. Back to some eligibility fine tuning. So I see one person is a 170(c)(1) government agency, but has a 501(c)(3) that supports them. So can they apply using the supporting organizations 990?
I am not sure about that. And I am wondering if we can invite one of our partners to answer this. We have Jillian Gora from BDO, and I'm wondering if Jillian might have some insights into that documentation and whether or not it would be accepted. Do we have her as a panelist?
What name am I searching for again? Sorry.
Jillian Gora?
Yeah, I'm not seeing Jillian's name on here, unfortunately. But
Okay.
Christopher is here from
Lawyers?
Lawyers, yes.
Hi, Chris.
Hey, yeah, so I will say that I am not specifically familiar with that sort of classification of organization. I'd be happy to take a closer look. I think this would be the perfect opportunity for sort of help desk support as opposed to sort of this Q&A format.
Great.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks for joining us today. Again, in addition to the help desk, we have a mighty team of experts who are here to help you navigate this process. We know some of these questions can be specific and confusing, and we're here to make it feel much more manageable and doable. Let's take a couple more, and then again, really just want to encourage folks to bring their questions, especially about specific eligibility or ID issues, to the help desk. That is really why we're here, to help you walk through some of those specific challenges. So I do see one person has asked about an organization that's a nonprofit separate from the school district, but that's also sometimes contracting with the school district, partially subsidized by the school district, but parents also pay tuition. Does that sound like something that might be eligible for this grant, even though they contract with the school?
It does sound like it would be an organization that would be eligible. And if this person has further questions, we'd be happy to chat more through the help desk. Sometimes it's helpful for us to take a look at a 990 or, yeah, and we can reach out to our partners and have them double check as well.
Great. Just for the sake of time, I think I'll have us take one more. One person has asked about an organization that's located outside of suburban Cook County, but that serves suburban Cook. In terms of eligibility, what would we give this person in terms of an answer?
Well, the short answer that I would give is that if they're located outside of suburban Cook County, they would not be considered to be eligible to apply. The application has a drop-down list of communities that are within Cook County that are eligible. So that's the best way for someone, if they're not sure, to go in and start the application and see if their community is listed.
And Pearl, I know you raised your hand. If you want to unmute and ask a more specific question, now is definitely the time. I've just given you the permission to do that.
Oh, thank you. Oh, the organization that I'm talking about is located in Naperville, the headquarters, but it has two Chicago centers, and it's adding another one center in Chicago. So how do we deal with that?
Well, all of this is based on where you all were in 2019. So anything that's happened after that would not be affecting what your situation is now.
Yeah, we do have all these centers in Chicago, and it's before, before it started,
Right.
in
Okay.
2019.
Yeah, I'd say if you wouldn't mind just sending a ticket into the help desk, because we can look
Oh,
into this
okay.
a little bit more, because it sounds like we just need to understand the timeline of
Right.
things a little bit better.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Pearl, and thank you to everyone who brought their questions. I think I'm going to bring us to a close. I know there may be some other outstanding questions, as well as other specific scenarios folks might want to talk through. We really hope this webinar has been helpful and addressed some of these big questions. But again, if you need any assistance with your application, if we did not answer a certain question that you still have, please feel free to submit a ticket to the help desk. We are also really eager to know if you did apply after coming to this webinar or chatting with us at the help desk. So that would be really helpful for our program reporting. So if you do, again, end up applying for this grant, please do let us know as well. As I said, this webinar recording will be shared on the Arts Alliance social media pages. So if you did not take copious notes, do not worry. We really appreciate everyone's time, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care.